at LVO because it's the first time we've seen a pretty decently sized tournament with these new rules. Given that it was less than 2 weeks ago the new rules came out, so I guess it's actually pretty early. It's kind of nice. So talk a bit about that, about kind of how we think the meta is going to shape up and everything there, and whatnot. Talk a little bit more about the new rules now that it's been a couple weeks. And then we can probably touch on probably my favorite update ever, being Spec Ops at the end. That's always fun news. But yeah, before we hop into everything, do you boys have any hot takes you would like to share with the community?
Hot takes.
Blizzard is bad.
Blizzard is bad. Okay. We didn't ask you to lie to the community.
Trying to think of the spiciest take I could possibly come up with.
So my take right now is that even with the withdrawal rule changes for creature troopers, I think Tauntauns and Dewbacks have gotten better after the post new rules, because even though they can't, bunny hop between engagements anymore, Tauns are getting more cover, and Dewbacks aren't spurring themselves off the table anymore. So it's all. I think it's net positive for them.
I could see a net positive for Tauntauns. I think Dewbacks are still in a little bit of a hard spot because of the suppression and panic changes. But I think part of something that could help them. I don't know if we've seen it a lot in the recent tournaments, but the placement onto impassable terrain for units that are climbing. If they have a difficult time climbing up and cannot place all their units in the climb or in cohesion without any overhang, then they're forced to stay down. And so that may open up opportunities for Tauns and Dewbacks to get engagements. But I think climb also makes it a little bit tougher. I think it's a net zero. But yeah.
Yeah, I haven't played with a lot of creature troopers in a while, even before the points update. Obviously, kind of the big thing we saw that was popular was Vader Dues, but I never really tried that very much. So, yeah.
Still really fun.
Anything with Vader is fun.
Just run around slapping people around, throwing them everywhere.
I did Palp Dues a couple times. That was kind of fun because pulling the strings on a Dewback is very fun.
It's
like new ways to motivate them, but all the time.
Yeah, pretty accurate,
I did test out Quad Taun with Commander Luke, and Tauns take practice. It was my very first time ever using them, so I did not do great. But I think there's potential there, but Commander Luke just feels like such a handicap. I think I described it as playing. It's like playing a Force user with a traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
I mean, accurate, but like, ouch.
Yeah, I'm not a Commander Luke fan.
He needs love. I agree with that, but like, it's weird because like I don't know how you give him love without making him really strong. Because like,
I don't know if he'd ever be considered really strong, Adam.
I mean, you can make him. You drop his points and get him to the point where like he's like 150 points for him plus Force Push. I think he gets really, really strong, especially because it's also a Courage 3 bubble and everything. Even if all he's doing is running around, move to charge and then Force Push something and recover, and that's his whole turn. Force Push is worth it.
Force Push.
Yeah, it sort of feels like Force Push itself needs to be gate kept behind some kind of a minimum cost. But that like wouldn't make Luke himself good and viable in enough situations to make him worth it. But it's like if you make him too cheap, just the force push, right, feels abusable. And I'm not even sure he would still even be good if you made him super cheap, but it just, I don't know, having force push be on a unit that's not, at least 170 plus points with upgrades and stuff just feels weird.
Yeah. Here's another hot take for you, because now we're just talking about it. Force push should be removed from the game. I stand by this. I stand by this one.
Boo.
I think you remove force push from the game, but you give everyone disengage, and you give Luke super disengage.
What is a super disengage compared to regular disengage?
You can move while engaged with 2 units instead of just one.
That's dumb.
Nah.
Force push is the most iconic ability in all of Star Wars. It needs to be in a Star Wars game.
Not just that. Like I'll go. It is the most strategic way to affect a game for Force users, and so there's that would actually eliminate so many reasons to even run a Force user if that was the case. If you removed it from the game.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm tired of just all my shit pushed all around. You can also tell by that comment who plays for a Jedi and who doesn't.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Adam. I'm sorry.
What? So then, what have you guys been playing lately after the new rules updates? What do you guys think is like? What have you been trying out?
Rebel Boba.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I think Rebel Boba is really good.
It's interesting. We've seen waves. So like Rebel Boba, everyone when they first dropped it, and like everyone saw the card and stuff, and the new cards and the new command cards. Sorry, everyone was like, "Whoa, this is gonna be amazing! Oh, it's gonna be so great!" And then he got released, and people started playing him like, "Yeah, he's not that great." And so there's like this kind of mass community understanding, like, "Oh yeah, Rebel Boba is only okay." And now we're starting to see it creep back into the. Actually, you know what? He's pretty dang good when you use him right, like really good. He's not, for me, I don't think he's your number one guy. I don't think you want him to be your number one guy, but as a number 2, he is solid.
See, I think that's the thing. So, like, you need him to be the complementary piece. And I think most people aren't used to that because everyone is used to, I have a 125 plus point hero. They are a focus piece when Boba really is kind of the side chick of a list. So, if you play around that fact and like use him to support the rest of your list and make the rest of your list do what they're doing better, he's really, really solid.
Yeah, I run him kitted out. Like I run him at 139 points, so that's an expensive Boba.
Yeah, it is a pricey Boba. Anytime he ends up in one of my lists, I usually just throw the flame projector and that's it.
I'll say that's kind of the boat I'm at right now, but I'm really trying to find the points to fit in up close and personal on him too. Just because in general, he's probably able to get off 2 attacks a turn, so it's 2 dodges if you're close range, which he usually is.
Yeah.
What about you, Nathan? Have you been trying anything out? Any lists? Anything like that?
Man, I think since Invader League, I have not played the same list more than 2 or 3 times. I'm bouncing out to everything. I guess the most recent thing I ran that wasn't just like a one shot here. You guys aren't hearing my daughter squealing in the background, are you? I can go turn down her baby monitor.
That's fine. No worries.
Smile.
Yeah. But recently, just at a local thing with some buddies, I brought Vader Lat. Vader, Lat, Black Sun, and fully kitted out Snow Troopers. And like some IRG and medics just for, keeping the close range units healthy on the approach. That was a super fun list. I don't know how viable it is, but it was really fun. And it can choose through just about any gun line that you can think of.
I do kind of expect like heal bots like that and everything has become a lot more popular now because like especially for Rebels, like we've been playing a lot here at Brian's basement. every Friday night. A lot of heal bots because Rebels don't have any other defensive tech, right? Um, so I don't know. Heal bots just feel very underplayed right now, just in general, because you're paying 9 points for you're paying 9 points per heal for most of them, which is netting you 30 points of value if you're judging a force user or similar by their health total divided by point, or the points divided by health total or whatever. So like stonks, baby.
So actually, here's my hot take. This is my prediction for Worlds. I think the way things are now, if Blizzard gets nerfed, right, it becomes the Wild West. Who knows what happens? But I think with the current units that are out / on the horizon that we know about, I think the meta's going to become rock, paper, scissors. Between Blizzard will beat Dark Troopers. But super chunky defensive medic lists beat Blizzard, but then Dark Troopers beats those. That's my prediction on the whole rock, paper, scissors. Because I think medic stuff, kind of defensive medic tech, dodge sharing stuff like that is one of the best ways to deal with Blizzard right now, because you just sort of sit there, you deal with the alpha, and then you kill all the bikes and just sort of out attrition them. Hopefully you've got some kind of a way to deal with Vader, either a force push or a couple Wookiees or something. But then that's, but I do think something that's not Blizzard, that doesn't have, impact 40, probably does get chewed up by Dark Troopers. So it's a weird, my prediction is it's going to be a weird rock, paper, scissors meta.
My only problem with that is that I think Dark Troopers still beat Blizzard Force. Straight up. Because, like the bikes are going to be able to push 4 saves onto the Dark Troopers, who have red saves. So, you're losing like a model from one bike. But then those Dark Troopers are going to shoot back twice and kill those bikes.
So I would agree with you if Vader were not in the mix. Because Vader can now climb, force throw, scatter one of those very expensive heavies forward, choke it, then climb back down, and then the next time those bikes sweep through, they're killing the assault cannon. And then the dice pool drops by like almost 50%. And if you're not at range 2, it literally is dropping it by more than 50% because you lose the dice and you lose the critical. So I think choke really messes up Dark Troopers, which is good, because if it didn't do that, they would just destroy everything. But I think Vader, really cagey Vader play with choke and stuff like that does it. And then once there's one Dark Trooper unit left, you just implacable and just solo it. Hack at it twice with your lightsaber and murder it.
Yeah, because Vader's going to kill a model and a half every single swipe, and if he's lucky, 2.
And on implacable, he gets 2 chokes, so he can, without even any rolling natty crits, implacable he can remove 4 Dark Trooper models, which I don't see people running the full 6-man unit. I think that seems inefficient to me.
I do expect it to be like mainly the 4-man units with just the assault cannon. But all I know is that without access to choke, Rebel players are sad, as are Republic players, because no one's running choke on Anakin.
I think
Saber throw is pretty good though.
Saber throw Anakin is gonna terrify a Dark Trooper player. I think that the other thing that we would see once Dark Troopers drop, I think we're going to see the HRUs, if they're still around, which I hope they're not, or at least I hope their price goes up. But I think the HRUs are going to change to DLTs and HH12s, because now you're getting impact 4 every shot against those Dark Troopers, in addition to 4 bikes, in addition to Vader. And if you're running Commander Vader, then you don't have a problem with your guys moving either, if with suppression, because he's just going to compel them forward. as a HRU youth.
Yeah.
I can't be Panther or anything, yeah. Which is
Yeah.
nice.
And to be honest, I don't think you even need the HH12. I think
You probably
just
don't.
with choke shenanigans and the bikes, Blizzard should be able to reduce the Dark Troopers to because that's the funny thing about them, right? Is compared to tanks, you have to kill the entire tank to make the tank warfight. For an ATST to stop shooting you, it has to take 11 wounds. But for those Dark Troopers, all you have to do is kill the assault cannon. Because if you have 3 naked Dark Troopers, sure, that's a very chunky unit, and it's going to be very, very hard to kill that unit, but it can't hurt you. It's 3 black dice. It's not even going to get past cover most of the time. So, unless it's you teleported away with an objective or something, which that is definitely a real threat and thing that Dark Troopers can do. I've lost against Dark Troopers that way, but I kill the unit, I neuter it, and then it teleports away with an objective or something. I'm like, God, dang it. So that's a real thing. But, assuming you manage those kind of situations and can just get rid of those heavies, which, again, choke sort of lets you cheat the system by killing those things quickly, then, yeah, I think Blizzard has the tools to deal with Darks, which is kind of unfortunate because I wish there was some other list that that was better at dealing with Darks, so that we could have more stuff into the mix. But no, it's Blizzard. Blizzard is the way to beat Dark Troopers right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking
going back to a hot take real quick. You want a hot take? I think Operative Luke should be able to take choke. He does it in the movies. Operative Luke should have choke. Sorry, it's in the movies. It's canon.
I think I don't need choke on Luke if there is a way for light side force users to be able to designate like a mini or something to be the unit that has to take wounds that round or something or similar. I don't know how any of that would look, but like if there was a way to designate a mini has to take wounds like choke does, I think it'd just be perfectly fine. I think that
would be cool. That would be cool.
Yeah, light side users used to be able to do that all the time with push and cohering, but that's not a thing anymore. You can't snipe heavies anymore.
So that's the one thing that is like the number one negative I've had of these new rules lately. Is just I can't snipe out heavies anymore. But like it is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think we've rambled a little bit long enough on hot takes and whatnot. So let's talk a little bit about the Las Vegas Open Grand Championship, also known as like what's widely considered to be the Legion tournament. Took place
with good reason.
With good reason. It's consistently been the biggest Legion tournament pretty much annually. So obviously took place in Las Vegas, considering it's the Las Vegas Open. Any initial thoughts on this? Any initial thoughts on anything? If you guys have looked through the lists or anything from LVO? I can tell you mine.
Mike's list was cool. I'm glad they took 501st. So, okay. This is kind of more in the hot take territory. But I see people talking about 501st, and they're like, well, 501st still isn't good. Mike is just a good player. I'm like, well, what's your definition of a good list? It's like you'd have the best list in the world. The player still has to be good, to take it to the top 2 of LVO.
Yeah, I
feel like the definition of a good list is a list that a good player can take, to a top seat in a large tournament.
Yeah, they have to be complementary of each other, yeah.
Right, and so I feel like 501st clearly fits the bill. Like if it's able to be taken that far, for me that is the definition of a good list. And so I think with the pass mechanic is huge, for sure. But I think the pass mechanic. I think the clone medics getting cheaper. Value of sharpshooter going up. Yeah, I think 501st is officially in good territory. Not Blizzard, obviously. Not meta breaking.
Especially with the Indomitable changes and everything, or the special changes and everything for the indomitable and everything to make it actually matter. So like you're never losing an objective. Yeah, there's a lot of good things going on with that. But okay, so for stats, just because I just pulled them up right here. 62 out of 143 players played Empire. And of those 62 Empire players, there were 20 Blizzard Forces, 21 if you count the quad E-Web, which I want to.
There's a quad E-Web at LVO?
There was a guy that ran four E-Webs and a bunch of Flamer Snows. I adored that list, and he only went 1 and 2, unfortunately, which kind of made me sad because he didn't move on to the next day, I believe. I'll see if I can find it real quick. But yeah, so he ran quad E-Webs, and I loved it so much.
Good for him. What a stud.
Yeah. Then the next surprising one was that Rebels were actually the second most played. Rebels had, I believe it was like 34. Here, let me pull the numbers back up instead of looking for the list. 34 Rebel players. Of those 34, 0 moved on to top 8, which is a little upsetting as a Rebel player. But yeah, so 34 Rebel players.
Do you know how many went to day 2?
I'll look in a second here. Republic was actually the next highest with 23, then 19 Separatists, and only 3 Shadow Collective, which I think is also very surprising.
I think the people have been saying that the Maul Pikes list is dead, and I think that's greatly exaggerated. It still seems to be.
You just have one less act.
Right, but it's like you've still got 6 chunky Pikes and Maul. And Maul, I will say, I think more than the Pikes, Maul is definitely hurt by the new changes. I mean, him not surging to defense and melee, it genuinely is a very big deal because it is fully likely. I mean, it is well within the realm of possibility for Maul to take 5 punches in a single attack, right? Because often likes to surround himself with 5 or 6 man units to bubble wrap. And, if it's vets or storms, right, anything that surges, like getting 5 to 6 hits through, and then, blanking all of those is going to happen 1 in 30, 1 in 32 times, which is not a lot, but, if you go through hoping to play 10 games in a tournament, that's a reasonable odds that it happens once. And then your Maul dying in one go is usually game over.
Yeah, it's really rough. Yeah. So just look through, Brian. In the top 64, day 2, there were 14 Rebel players. So 14 out of 34 moved on, and then 0 of those 14 moved on to day 3, top 8.
That's pretty good.
I mean, across the board, it's kind of actually below average, because 20 they were below our average in advancement rate from 34 to 14 because they went from because 64 top 64 is half the count, so a little behind there, and then none moving on to day 3, so definitely below average there. But yeah,
I think Rebels are in a little bit of an interesting spot right now because I feel like they have a lot of good tools still, but there's not really a clear identity on how to use those tools most effectively like there was before Gen Con, right? So before Gen Con, you had the DLT Captain Spam with Op Luke, and that was like the clear Rebel identity at that time. And so right now, people are kind of just figuring stuff out. Lots of people are trying to use Boba. Lots of people are trying to use gun lines right now with vets, which I think can be effective. But I think as a rebel faction, we haven't quite hit the identity yet. That's going to both handle Blizzard Force, and then the other part that's hard of that is what can handle Blizzard Force and Dark Troopers. So yeah. That's going to be the challenge.
So, yeah, because if you look through the list and everything, there's quite a few lists that pop up for pretty much every other faction. Like 501st made a decent appearance, as did like a clone gun line, and Anakin Pikes. I saw a couple of those as well from like Republic. Separatist has their new B2 spam list, which is like my freaking favorite list right now.
So good.
Because it's just 5 B2 Haas and the T series. So you get the 3 red, 1 white blast at range 3. So, you don't get any cover, even though there's so much cover in the game now. And then they also had the spiders on top with Kraken. And it's such an in-your-face list, and it's great. I like it a lot. But then, of course, Empire has their double bounty list. Empire has Blizzard Force.
Blast is so hot right now.
Yeah, so Mercs have, I believe all the Mercs that played had some form of Mandalorians in them, which was pretty cool to see.
That's cool.
I'll have to check to make sure that's accurate, because it's probably not, but like 2 of them did, I'm pretty sure. But then I was looking through the Rebel list. And the only like archetype I saw that really popped up more than 2 or 3 times was a Rebel Boba gunline. That was pretty much it. They had some mix of like Rebel Boba with Chewie or Rebel Boba with Leia. It's kind of like along those lines. That was really like the archetype that stood out the most, and I don't think any of those really performed well, unfortunately, because I think it is actually a really solid list, because it's kind of the list that I've been playing a lot of lately. Leia, Rebel Boba, and Chewie with some commandos, and we didn't see any like specific lists like that, which I think would perform very well, especially given the tables that we saw. But that remains untested. So,
I felt like the tables were quite a bit lighter than we've seen in the past. Like I looked at the tables at LVO, and I thought, man, these are quite a bit lighter than they were at World, or not at Worlds, at Adepticon last year. And I remember being anxious taking that triple FD list to Adepticon. It's like, well, if I get a bad table, then I'm kind of screwed. But when I saw the tables at LVO, I had originally thought that FDs were dead. I was like, oh, FDs are worthless because of this overhang rule. And then I saw those tables, and I was like, you know what? Maybe FDs could work.
When you have a tournament that size, right, and you have to have 70 different tables, it's definitely tough to find enough terrain, to fill 70 tables.
It's also it's also kind of interesting, because it's like I feel like there was still plenty of cover on the tables with the new rules and everything, which I found that I think that's kind of more or less accurate, because it sounded like a lot of times people were getting heavy cover and whatnot. So there's less terrain on the table, but there's still just plenty of cover.
Yeah, line of sight blocking is still an important thing, though.
Yeah, the line of sight blockers we're definitely lacking, I felt like.
Yes, I think needed to increase a fair amount, I felt. Otherwise you're going to see more of the same. You're going to see red saves continue to do really well without proper line of sight blockers, and you're going to see white saves taper off, which is sort of what we saw at LVO.
It's kind of what we're seeing in the meta right now, just even outside of LVO as well. There's a lot of people are having Republic and Empire at the top 2, and then Shadow Collective in there as well, and then CIS and Rebels at the bottom as least competitive. Not saying that they're bad, because they're not. I know they're not bad because I keep beating Brian with them. So I know they're not bad. It's just they're very easily. It's very easy to consider them less competitive, because quite honestly, it kind of feels like they are right now, with the way everything's going. Before we hop into the top 8 list for LVO, I kind of want to go through what was kind of said about kind of like judge calls and everything, because I've seen a couple posts about kind of like what judge calls and everything there were kind of popped up the most and whatnot. So for a brief summary, there was 5 things that caught my eye, really. One was there was apparently a lot more cover and line of sight calls, not to be able to see the target, but to like figure out if they have any cover at all, because like even just a snippet of cover, gives them cover. So there was that. There was also another kind of like prevalent part of that was for the speeder bikes, because the speeder bike silhouette is so weird because it's like very like, it's a floating pizza dish basically. Yeah. So it's kind of like it creates a really weird hitbox for them. So it's like there was a lot of calls for that. So okay, I guess point number 2 was kind of what I already said. That like a lot of the line of sight calls were if there were like tiny slivers visible. There was questions about emplacement troopers, specifically, being able to not move through them anymore. That's a really big part of the rules because you originally used to be able to move through emplacement troopers, and now you cannot, like full stop, which is kind of game changing. Number 4 was questions about payload, kind of to be expected with how payload has been completely flipped around, with the payload not be able to fly over everything, actually having to go around terrain like an actual bomb cart. And then number 5 was panic timing. Just the windows of when panic triggers, when you drop objectives, when you no longer count, et cetera, et cetera. But overall, it sounded like it was about the same to a couple more judge calls, but at the same time, I think a lot of that can be chalked up to just the fact that the rules are new. I think it remains to be seen if the changes actually make the game faster or not, because it's been less than 3 weeks since the rules came out, so we haven't really had time to see. But I was just curious what you guys kind of thought about that, the rules, or like those rules changes, like the questions and whatnot.
I think the questions, because I know that someone had mentioned that LJ had a lot fewer questions this year than he did last year. But part of that might be because the answer to all of the questions was heavy cover. And so you only ask a couple of times, and then you're just like, you know what, it's just heavy cover. Never mind. So, of course it's heavy cover. It's just heavy cover. Everything's heavy cover. So
yeah.
So I guess I'll preface by saying that I'm not totally a fan of the new cover rules. I think that's a pretty popular opinion, but I do think they are faster. I think if people say they aren't faster, they're being a little silly, because again, like Brian said, everything has heavy cover now, and for me, I guess it's usually because what people say is that, well, if you do it cover now, you have to look from every single point. I'm like, you don't have to look from every single point. You have to look from the hardest point. Like, where is the most, like, it's usually going to be one edge or the other of the model, right? Is going to be the spot that is going to have the most, weirdest vantage point for seeing something, right? And so you check from that weirdest spot, and it's like, oh, okay, well, this clearly, crosses cover it from this angle. Okay, it's going to be heavy. And then, if you go from the very closest, furthest edge, and you can go straight to a model, it doesn't hit everything. It's like, oh, okay, actually probably have it. You can kind of look over your model, and in the new rules, if you have an open shot, in my experience, it's like really obvious that it's an open shot, because there literally has to be like nothing in the way. So if there's literally nothing in the way, it's open. If there's anything there, it's probably heavy. And in my experience, it does go really fast. Again, I'm not saying that makes it good, but it is faster, like genuinely.
I'm so hopeful that there's going to be a little update soon enough that it's like you draw a line of sight from a single point on your silhouette instead of any point, which I think is like the number one complaint from a vast majority of the community. In terms of the new rules changes, like if there was one thing that's changed to make the community happy, that would be it.
Yes.
But I guess it still remains to be seen if that will happen or not. But like,
I am hopeful.
Yeah.
It'd be a very quick wording change, and everyone who plays Legion would intuitively get that. Yeah. Because that's how when the rules dropped, that's how 50 to 60% of the Legion community was playing it anyway. Was playing from a single point of the attacker, and then there was that correction, like, oh no, it's all of the, and so all of us are like, okay, hold on a second, what? Yeah.
I would maybe add a single point from the top of the attacker's silhouette, so we don't have to worry about like weird feet stuff, right? Or weird stuff.
Oh,
but
that makes sense.
A single
so
point.
You don't get the tow guns from the ATSD.
Right, exactly. You don't do weird stuff like that, but
I don't know. I'd be all right with troopers. I'd be all right with troopers shooting from their feet because they can bend over and shoot underneath stuff.
I don't want to have to like check that though in a game. I don't want to have to like put my head on the table and just pick a point on the top of the silhouette. And I don't think, well, and I don't think that would even, if you just have it be a point on the top of the silhouette, I don't think that would even make the game much slower because again, wherever the best spot is going to be, it's usually easy to tell. It's usually on one edge of the silhouette is going to be the clearest spot. And it's like, okay, if I can't see him from here, I'm not going to be able to see him from anywhere. Like 99 times out of 100, that's how it goes.
Yeah,
there obviously will be single individual instances where it takes longer, but that's true with any rule set in any game. There's always going to be one call that's longer than it would have been in some other circumstance.
And if you put the point on the top of the silhouette, it still keeps the game pretty snappy because like you're not bending over to look, as you said. So I guess let's dive into the top 8 lists right now. I'm going to start with places 5 to 8 in no particular order. So the only CIS list that we saw that came into top 8 was from Austin Miller, who Brian talks to a decent amount, and he's telling me that he was really happy, like really excited to see his list. So for the list, it was Dooku, 6 battle droids, just B1 battle droids. 2 of them had the sniper, the E5S, 1 with uplink, 1 with a medic, 1 with a worker. There were Magna Guards with protector and comms relay, and then AAT with high energy shells and link targeting array. I should have mentioned that this is Separatist Invasion Force, I believe, based off the cards. Because there's a standby card for Dooku, which is what makes sense for battle meditation. So, thoughts on this list? Because it's not the B2 spam I was talking about.
No, it's a unique list because and I was chatting with Austin. Both Nathan and I talk with Austin a lot, and I was chatting with Austin before LVO, and he was like, everyone says Dooku's bad, so I'm going to go show him that he's not bad. And I think he did a great job of that. So he did fantastic.
Hey, just for clarity, real quick, Dooku has battle meditation, force choke, force push, and aggressive tactics. Because I realized I didn't say that until now. So
I was real happy to see Austin doing well. Yeah, I messaged him before day 3, and I was like, "I'm rooting for you, man. Take it to the end." And obviously he didn't, but the fact that he made top 8 at all at that size of tournament is very impressive. I think he's putting stuff together that people aren't talking about, but it's just like he threw in a bunch of stuff that's good. It's like AATs are good, Dooku's good, Magnus are good. Throw them all together, and it's like opponents are like, all right, what do I do? I've got too much stuff I have to worry about.
Yeah, no, it's actually a really nice list, and I'm kind of surprised that Dooku isn't seeing his more play, just because it feels like he's really solid, especially when Dark Troopers come out. His 1 pip turn with saber throw is really really gross against those guys. So
I don't totally love Dooku with Dark Troopers. Yeah, it depends on what support you have and how much other shenanigans you do.
It's not a winning matchup by any stretch of the imagination. It just helps in that scenario.
Right. It's an choke, option. Like we were saying, choke makes a big difference. So any list that's playing choke against Dark Troopers probably feels a lot better than one that doesn't have it, unless you've got like Impact 40 or something.
Another interesting aspect with Dooku and Dark Trooper interaction is that you can actually force the Dark Troopers to make a Speed 2 move, which they normally can't.
That's true. That's true. You can hit them and then back them up way further than they want to be, or get them close enough to choke them.
Closer to Dooku, yeah.
Right.
Dooku's not terrible in melee if he can get the first hit because of his pierce. Actually, no, not the pierce, because they're not immune pierce anyway. Never mind. Ignore me.
Yeah. But I mean, impact 2 surge crit, right? He has a reasonable chance to deal 3 wounds, and then with force choke, right? He can clear 2 models, or he can, if he's got one that's already activated, right? He can pull it in a melee with himself, slash him, deal 3 wounds, then he can choke the heavy on another unit, right? So he can sort of weaken 2 units at the same time. And if Austin's list, right? You got Magnas, and did he have the rockets on the Magnas?
And Magnas were naked. It was just
Protector Magnas were naked.
relay.
Ooh, okay. That's a choice.
They're just there to be a Guardian bot.
Yeah, Guardian bot. Well, if I were running, when Dark Troopers come out, if I were running Magnas, I would certainly have the rockets.
Yeah.
Obviously they weren't here for LPL, but right, say you've got rockets on the Magnas, right? You choke the heavy on one, Magnas are going to finish that off, and now it's got no assault cannon. It's not doing anything now. Next turn he chokes the heavy on the other unit, Magnas finish that, and now you've just got the one that's tied in Dooku that he can just beat to death with the saber. Most force users can handle 1 unit of Dark Troopers. They'll come out bloody on the other end of it, right? Taking 2 punches a turn, but if they can last first properly, should be able to dismantle 1 unit.
All right. Next list that was top 5 to 8 was the only Shadow Collective list that made it. With Jared Dieter from Legion Lads. He was running.
Didn't he win LVO last year?
I don't remember. I wasn't around for LVO last year. I've actually it's been less than a year since I started playing, so
yeah, I think he did.
He's a Maul player.
Well, I mean, he was playing Maul on this list, so it kind of works out there, huh?
Yeah, he's really, really good.
Yeah, I thought he did Kalani. Well, it could have had Maul on it. Yeah, I think it was a Maul Kalani double spider list.
Yes, it was.
This was when people were first starting to realize, oh crap, Kalani double spiders is really good.
Yeah.
Okay. So this time around he was running. So he had a Shadow Collective Maul with choke, push, vigilance, into the fray, and Darksaber. He had 2 capos, one with vigilance, one with improvised orders, 5 pike foot soldiers, 3 of which had the Electro Whip actually, and then 2 of them with the Disruptor. He had a unit of Black Stun Enforcers with the Magdet and the Vigo, targeting scopes and frag grenades, and then a speeder or the AA5 with just the backward medic.
Well, it clearly does not have enough Black Sun.
100% agree.
Yeah.
Between Nathan and I from Gen Con, we ran boatloads of Black Sun. Was it 8 Black Sun between the 2 of us?
Bro, are we counting Vigo units? So when I was at Gen Con, I ran 3 Vigo units and 5 Black Sun units.
There you go. I just had two loaded Black Suns. So
yeah, it's
I didn't want any dirty pikes sullying my army.
Yeah. So notably, yeah. So it seems like pike Maul pikes are still going pretty strong. They're still pretty good. People just forgot about them.
Yeah.
The Electro Whips are kind of an interesting choice. I would have liked to watch some games with him.
Well,
and see what back when pikes were 40 points. Oh, go ahead, Adam.
I would say interesting because it's like the Electro Whip soldiers are 10 points, so it's pretty much just an extra body at that point, which is it's I'd assume that's probably why you ran them. Just so happens that you tack on a whip to them, but it's pretty good for 10 points.
Yeah, because back when pikes were 40, and I would mess around with Shadow Collective building, like I obviously sort of settled on Black Sun, and that's what I really liked. But I did a lot of throwing in single man, just 40-point pike units, just them with the whip on, because like 50 points, that's like a pretty good deal for that unit. Now that they're up a little bit more, and that list is generally tight for points, since it's like kind of or looked like it was supposed to be kind of a gun line. But I don't know. I almost wonder if it would be fun to take a bunch of pikes with like whips, and then you stick on grenades of some kind. Either concussion grenades or frags. So that when you kind of get up into that range 1, you've got, if you've got capos on there, which I think he did, right? Didn't he have capo personnel with the?
It was just 5-man units.
Just 5-man whip squads. Okay.
Yeah, the whole unit costs 54 points.
Okay, that makes more sense. For some reason, I thought he was running whips and capos, and I was like, just do a disruptor. But
that
makes a little more sense. That makes a little more sense.
Yeah. Then I guess next 2 lists that didn't make it were 2 Empire lists actually. They were the 2 non-Blizzard Force Empire lists that made it to top 8. So the first one was from Izzy G, who's awesome. He 10 acts. He had Iden with a bunch of upgrades, pretty much standard Iden upgrades. Imperial Officer with Underworld connections, which makes sense for the double bounty he's running here. He had IG-88 with Hunter and grappling hooks, and then Boba Fett with Relay, his new flame projector, and E-stims. Stormtroopers with the medic, Naked Shores, Naked Mortar, 2 strike teams, and Inferno Squad.
So that's his Gen Con list.
Is it really?
Gen Con.
I thought it changed.
He traded out IG.
Yeah,
boss for IG-88.
Which makes sense because 88's kind of gross.
Yeah,
IG-88's really good.
Yeah,
I mean, there's just a lot of good things going on in this list between pretty solid tax strike and 2 bounty hunters. There's a lot to deal with. So makes sense.
It's funny. IG-88 hasn't really had his time to shine, I feel like, because in the time since he's been out, the meta's been so dominated, was first by Maul Pikes and now by Blizzard Force. But if and when Blizzard Force gets nerfed, I think a lot of Empire players are going to have Boba IG-88 sort of as the new Empire standard, because
Boba 88 is really good.
Really good.
Yeah.
Because you've got, IG-88 just really good at killing his bounty target, and then Boba Fett's also really good at killing his bounty target. Crazy how that works. And then, and then Boba, they're both kind of unique in the sense that they're both pretty decent linebackers for a gun line. Boba with his whipcord, and then 88 with his 2-pip that the I don't remember what it's called, the one that gives him steady and demoralize 3. You can just kind of just panic a unit that's diving you. So options there. Boba also flame projector for linebacking, kind of dive into melee, hit someone with like 9 red dice, probably gonna die. I mean, just a solid list. So the other one, double bounty was from Michael Hollingsworth from Team Relentless, who was running just an Imperial Officer with Underworld connections. This one had Boba, no upgrades on Boba, notably. Not saying that he needs any, but makes sense. And then nothing at all. Then he had Cad Bane with duck and cover, situational awareness, and his gauntlets. So Bane over 88 here. He had 3 shore units, 2 with the T-21B, and then 1 with Del Mico. 3 of the mortars, and then 3 3 sniper strike teams for a flat 800 and 12 activations.
Wow,
yeah.
12 activations.
Yeah, it's kind of gross with bounty hunters like that. So it's interesting for sure. I feel like we've seen a lot of these but double bounty lists pop up before Blizzard Force really took over. So
yeah, the double bounty is really good.
Yeah,
especially with Boba Fett. Empire Boba is just so good with the gun line because he line backs, he supports, he's got bounty, right? And then IG-88 is just a monster. But then, Cad, Cad is a lot better now too, with getting his points cut and getting 2 free dodges every turn. It's way harder to kill.
Yeah, so it's just like it's a good list. I don't know what else to say about it. Okay, I guess moving on to top 4. No particular order there. The first one was a Republic list by Tim Veldis. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Vldhus. I think it's Veldis.
I think it's just Timbo from 5th Trooper.
Is it Timbo?
Yeah.
Is that Timbo?
Yeah,
I didn't realize that was Timbo. I've never heard his last name before, so that makes sense. Okay, so it was Timbo, 9 acts with Gar. He had Anakin, Force Push, Saber Throw, Seize, and Endurance. Clone Commander with Improvised Orders, Padme with Recon, 2 Phase 1s with the DC-15 Clone Captain, Situational Awareness, Phase 2 Trooper with the extra body, with the Z6. No, not the extra body. Z6 Clone Medic, Situational Awareness. 2 naked Phase 1s. One of those Phase 1s actually had a Recon Intel. And then Echo Strike Team. So, anime gunline, pretty much it. Yeah. Tried and true. Seen it. It's been good. I don't know. Any thoughts on that before the other one?
No, it just seems super standard and solid. Like, it's just a really dependable list.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we've seen it before. That's the thing. Is like it's pretty like we know it's good, so it's kind of interesting that it just pretty much hasn't changed.
I mean,
I guess there's no pikes in it now. But...
Well, obviously, I think the biggest change is no exemplar. So Padme is not doing as much. That's why I was a little bit surprised to see anime list go so far. But obviously giving out free tokens and her command cards and all that. Obviously, those are all still good, right?
Yeah. The dodges and aims are super important for that kind of a gun line. And Tim's a great player too. And so when you get a really solid, dependable list piloted by a great player, then you're going to see a lot of success.
Yeah, and it looks like Timbo had all 3 of Padme's cards in there, so you're getting that reliable one. You're getting those 2 speed 1 moves. I don't remember what her, and then she's clearing. Yeah, she's able to grab a couple more dodges to clear some suppression with her 1 pip. Couldn't remember what it did for a second. Okay, and then the other top 3, top 4 list was from Evan Paul, who's also part of the 5th Trooper Network. I know he's part of the 5th Trooper Network because it says it in his name on a Game Up link, so no questions there. He was running Blizzard Force. Surprise, surprise. He's only been running it for like 6 months now. Yeah, so Imperial Officer with Improvised Orders, Electro Binoculars, Darth Vader with Choke, Push, Tenacity, 2 Naked Snows, 2 the HRUs with the DLT and the RT-97C, 4 speeder bikes with emergency transponder. Literally just Blizzard Force, the stock standard Blizzard Force that we've come to love. In quotations. Love in quotations.
Now, one thing that's interesting about Evan's list is so he and Kyle Dornbos both ran Blizzard Force, and there's one person who had to play both of them that we know of, and that was Dave Grant, who had his 6 activations, Palpatine, Vader, and the Gav tank, and he actually beat Evan Paul. So, I mean, that's freaking sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave Grant, I think he's earned himself a spot in the Legion Hall of Fame.
Okay, I guess we'll pull up his list real quick just so everyone knows what we're talking about. I was gonna do it after the top 8, but like, I think it's perfect time to do it now. So he's at it was an Empire player. 792 points, 6 activations. With Emperor Palpatine with push, burst of speed, anger, and improvised orders. Vader with push, choke, burst of speed. Medic, portable scanner, concussion grenades, snow troopers, and then 2 snow troopers with just the med droid, and then a heavy occupier tank, a Gav tank, with Governor Price and HQ uplink for 6 activations, 792 points. It's a lot, really fun list. For clarity, the play basically was you move the tank up twice, and then you use Palpatine to pull the strings Vader off of that tank, and now he's got his whole activation because it just gets around the embark rules. It's pretty much how it went. So, yeah, it's a deceptively solid list.
I love it. I love everything about it because for all of you innovators out there, you'll get on the Discord boards and you're gonna say, "Ooh, I'm gonna try this new list," and the Discord boards are gonna be like, "No, that's bad, blah 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 blah," and you just ignore them and you just get good at the things you want to play. And Dave Grant is your man. Like, he's the guy that you go to and be like, "Oh my goodness, he took a list that he just wanted to play and he played it incredibly well, and he was super successful with it." Like, there will be lots of naysayers out there that'll tell you what units can and cannot be played, and frankly, they're wrong.
Yeah,
they're wrong.
Yeah, it's worth noting 2 things. One is that Dave Grant's only loss was to the champion. Second thing is that he has, I've basically sharing this third hand at this point, but I've heard that he's been running this list for like years.
He's up to like, I'm like 90% sure that he's up to like 18-2 at tournaments with it now, because he went into LVO 13-1 apparently.
13-1.
And I doubted him a lot when he first said that, and then I watched his stream game and I was like, oh, man's A wasn't lying, and B, this list slaps, and I liked it a lot. It looked like a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, that stream game, yeah.
The stream game did convince me.
I mean, it's tough. Definitely, I mean, that stream game list didn't have a force user, right? So that's sort of, if you're Dave Grant, you're salivating if you see that the other person doesn't have force push, because you can just get Vader locked in round 1, and then Vader wins the game by himself practically. Yeah, I would have really loved to see his game against Evan Paul. I asked him on Discord, some messages, I was like, "Hey man, I don't want to like bug you about like a loss, but what happened in that game?" And he was like, he basically, he told me a little bit about it, and he said, "Well, you can read it in the 5th Trooper one shots." And I was like, "Oh, okay," but he told me a little bit. Not much, I guess. Some really just kind of crazy stuff with slingshotting Vader up and killing bikes and stuff like that. But yeah,
I similar to how the stream game went.
I sort of went, because the thing with the stream game is he went up, he slingshot it up, he got into melee, and then he was locked in, and then there were some shenanigans where he wasn't always safe. But in theory, you can just jump from engagement to engagement. But if you have an enemy force user, I wouldn't feel comfortable running Dave's list. If like you charge Vader in, and the other guy pushes you out, and then you just get shot 50 times. And man, my tournament red saves do not roll blocks if I get shot multiple times. I was salty, so I kept track of my Maul. This is a tangent, but on day 1 of Gen Con, when I ran Maul, I kept track of my saves, and I blocked 4 of 11 with searching defense over the course of my day. Notice I only took 11 hits, because that's the only way my Maul lives, is if I stop him from taking hits. So anyway, hopefully, I mean, if on theory, on average, takes 24 hits to kill Vader, not counting hits that are dodged, right?
Golly.
So, I guess makes sense in theory, but my I've blanked out on Maul too many times to be comfortable running a list where I know Vader's gonna get shot at least a couple times on round one.
So, okay. So we'll hop back over to top 8 list here with the runner-up, Michael Berry. My favorite list from the top 8 personally. Arcstar 2.0, awesome. 800 points, 8x. Anakin with Force Barrier, Force Push, no training upgrades. Phase 2 Clone Troopers with a Mortar and a Medic. Phase 2 Clone Troopers with a Z6 and a Clone Medic. 3 full arcs with the DC-15X, the sniper rifle. 1 Echo Strike Team, because you can only run one. And then 1 Bark Speeder for 8x. So because there's 4 special forces in there, this was 501st, which we were talking about earlier. Just so everyone remembers. And yeah, looks like he was running lead from the front, which I believe is the one where you give out tokens for being close to people.
Yeah.
And the other one is leader of the 501st, which is the one that gives Indomitable permanently to everyone within range 2 of Anakin. So, yeah. I'm happy that arcs are doing well because arcs are cool, and I want to paint mine. Now I have a reason to.
Arcs look so cool when they're on the table.
Yes, they're awesome. And one thing that I love is I love seeing lists in top tournaments that if Joe Schmo posted that list on a Discord chat, people would tear it to shreds. Mm-hmm. And I think if a Joe Schmo posted this and be like, I'm going to take this to a big tournament and make top 2, everyone would be like, bro, okay. But it's great. It's great. And we saw how potent it was. I was a little bit bummed for the final game streaming. I feel like Mike's dice were hurting him, and that attrition battle became very difficult for him early on the first couple rounds. And so that made it a little bit hard because I wanted to see Dash do really well. And not that I was rooting against Dornbos at all, because it's always fun to see him play as well. He's very, very good. But I did want to see how that 501st held up. And so
we'll say, didn't realize that this was Dash as well. I'm not familiar with people's actual names. I just know Discord names.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's Dashy. Yeah.
Okay. So that's Dashy. That makes much that helps connect the face to name for me. So that helps a lot.
I will say I have one beef with Mike's list, which is that in my opinion, Echo needs to be on a full squad.
Yes.
Because having a full arc squad with Echo, having critical 1 in that pool and the extra red is just so juicy. And I feel like, and I get why Echo goes in the sniper, because Echo sniper is phenomenal. You can basically always do a wound because those red dice are always going to hit. I mean, you spend the aim for lethal, right? And then you got a free search token for your army. But you stick Echo on a full squad, you can straight up nuke stuff. And then your naked 55-point sniper, you just have double move every turn to generate 2 aims that your full arcs can spend. So, I don't know. Mike's much more experienced Republic player than I am, so I'm sure he has reasons, and I would love to pick his brain about that. But when I look at that, I want to be like, I want to try Echo in a full squad because it's so good when full Echo shoots stuff.
Yeah, I'm happy to see a 501st list do well, as we said before, because everyone hates on 501st for being bad, but it's actually pretty solid. Then, so I guess that brings us to our number 1 with Mr. Orchimedes, aka Kyle Dornbos, aka I don't know. There's other titles there that I'm forgetting.
Number 1 player in NA right now, I think.
I believe Zeus Juice still hasn't beat.
I think Zeus Juice got beat out. Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't checked in a while.
I think in the current Elo board, actually Luke Cook. That's number 1.
Oh, Luke he took it back, huh? Good for him.
There's Luke,
Okay, now
and
I'm
then
curious.
Kyle, and then
I'm gonna pull it up
Matt,
real quick because now you got me curious.
Yeah, it is Luke Cook, then Kyle, then Matt. Yep.
I think they're all super close.
They're all within 8 points of each other.
Yeah.
So Kyle's probably, with all his wins at LVO, he's probably gonna take it back.
Yeah,
I would think.
Yeah.
Quick shout out to our boy, Mr. Tyler Carnes at number 4, rep for the Garrison.
Yeah. Good old Tyler, man.
And Brian, you're pretty high on there, right?
I'm at 11. Yeah.
Only 11.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
It is. It's great, but
I can't talk. I'm at like 190. I can't talk because I'm at like 192 because I'm like 2 and 5 at like big tournaments like that. So, but yeah. So he was running Blizzard Force. Surprise, surprise. He's only been running it since it came out. It's pretty much identical to Evan Paul's. He's got Imperial Officer with just improvised orders, no electro binoculars there. And then Darth Vader with choke, push, tenacity, and into the fray. So he dropped the electro binoculars and added on into the fray, and that is the only difference between these two lists. So 2 Naked Snows, 2 of the DLT 19 RT 97C heavy response units, and 4 bikes with emergency transponders. So ain't broke, don't fix, as he says in his title.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if there's anything you guys want to say about that list, or except for the fact that it needs to be not gutted, but like I wouldn't mind it being gutted because I don't want to play against bikes every game. It doesn't deserve to be gutted, but like one can dream.
It's good. It's just good. There's just so much to deal with in that list, which is the I mean, that's the marquee of a good list, is that you're trying to look for that saturation. That's what everyone's trying to build. That one just builds it so efficiently that in the hands, it just elevates the gameplay of players. Like, so there's just some lists that, like, that's one of those lists that you can take a mediocre player and they'll do very well, and you'll take an excellent player and they'll just stomp face. And it's just really, really efficient. And so, and everyone agrees that we all want to see it toned down a little bit because, especially before Worlds, otherwise everyone's just going to be running that because everyone wants to win Worlds. Like, I want to win it. Everyone else wants to win it. I won't run it just because I like to be an innovator.
Because it goes against your contrarian mindset.
It does. And the funny thing is that I was running triple bikes when everyone was saying that they were bad. And so now that everyone else is like, oh man, the bikes are so great, I'm just like, my list was awesome too.
I know. That's the worst. But so I think literally it was like 2 weeks before Blizzard Force came out. We had a local with like a pretty small local. So my friends were just 3 games. But I took Vader, Boba, triple bikes. And my theory was like, this has a really good objective deck. I can take Recover with, Boba and Vader, new ways to motivate them. And I can take Hostage, Breakthrough, and Bombing Run. That was basically what I did. I won the thing by I've never won the attrition battle, but I always won, the objective fight. And I was like, Vader, Boba, triple bikes, that's awesome. And then I saw the Blizzard rules, and I saw that you could do Vader quad bikes, and I was like, well, RIP.
Yeah.
Vader triple bikes is dead because it will never be as good as this. And then, we saw how good it was. Yeah. I still think there's counterplay. I think, like we were saying at the beginning, I think if you're really just build into like a solid defensive tech list, and something. I mean, you need things to do on objectives, right? Because Blizzard's objective deck is really brutal. So ideally, you have like Barks or some kind of speeder or something that can deal with hostage reasonably well, right? So I mean, you've got stuff like that. I think you can deal with Blizzard. It's just going to be hard to build a list that can deal with Blizzard and deal with Dark Troopers and deal with Pikes right. It's tough to come up with something that can answer all of those without just taking Blizzard.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah. Couple interesting stats for you as I was looking through these lists. In the top 8, 5 of the 8 lists were battle forces. 5 of the top 8 lists were at 800 points. And 6 of the top 8 lists had a force user in them, with the 2 that didn't being the double bounty list.
I was surprised with that. I was pretty surprised with the deflect change to see that many force users, because the deflect change, it didn't hurt Commander Vader at all, who was in several of those lists, right?
Or Operative Vader.
Or Operative Vader. It didn't hurt Anakin either. And now if you take Vader and Anakin out of that top 8 list, you had one force user, I think, or two force users.
There was one Shadow Collective Maul, one Dooku.
Oh yeah. So you had Shadow Collective Maul and Dooku, which I was a little surprised to see how well they did. The Shadow Collective Maul did have into the fray though, and Dooku did what he the title of that list says. He ducked, dodged, and dived.
Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and Dooku.
Yeah,
phenomenal name.
Yeah.
Well, he had aggressive tactics, right?
So. He did also have aggressive tactics, so he's probably getting an order or getting a surge token every turn too. Because Dooku should be getting an order pretty much every time, either through battle meditation or through just giving himself an order. So works out.
Yeah. So I was surprised to see that many force users with some of the deflect changes, but also. I'm happy with it because, personally, I like force users. I watch Star Wars because of force users and because of bounty hunters. So if we see bounty hunters and a force user in every list with a bunch of other stuff scattered in, I'm totally happy with that.
I do want to just touch on the top Rebel lists real quick, just because they were the only faction we didn't see in top 8. I'm not going to dive into detail on these 3 just because I'm not sure which one is technically like the top one or whatever. One was Bushfax with Brian's list. 2 Rebel officers with Vigilance, Luke, and then a bunch of troopers and vets with medbots. There was Ryan Solowski's list which is what he's been running for a while, which was the Leia, triple vets, triple Mark IIs, triple Tons, and the FD cannon, which he's talked about a lot on Stabcast. And then there was Seth Rourke, who is he? Is that a name that on Discord that I don't know? I feel like it is.
It probably is. I don't know which one Seth is, but
okay. Yeah. So he was running Han. He had Han, Pike Capo. He had Rebel Boba and Chewie. He had double Rebel vets, double Mark IIs, and then 2 Disruptor Capo foot soldiers. Which, yeah, that's the highest placing Boba Chewie gunline that I referenced earlier, like way earlier in the episode. So, yeah, I think there are still quite a few decent Rebel lists out there. They just barely missed out on top 8. So
yeah, I was chatting with Bushfax about it. He and I played a lot leading up to LVO, and that's what helped him convince him to take that list. Because I was doing fairly well with that, and so he asked if he could take it. And I was like, yeah, dude, take that list. And so he took it, and he did really well. And I thought that it had the ways to deal with Blizzard Force. I built it to be able to handle Blizzard Force, but Bushfax said that when he played against Evan Paul, which was I think one of his losses in the later rounds on day 2, I think it was the last round, day 2.
It sounds right.
He said that he he played hostage against it, and naturally he used the Mark II as his hostage carrier, which is the smart thing you want to do against a Vader that can come and mess you up and choke your guy. And he even used on round 2, he used either round 1 or round 2, he used Luke's "Serve Your Master Well" to get an extra move out of that Mark II, and Vader still was able to pull him back and get him too close to his deployment to where Bushvax was not able to claim that game. And so I thought it was far enough. I thought that it would be able to handle hostage against that Vader list, but it still had a hard time, Bushvax said. So
it's like so close, just so far. Yeah, that was his final loss on day 2, which I think is what put him to 5-1, made him miss out. So unfortunate there, but yeah. I don't know. I think there are still plenty of options for Rebels, as kind of I said multiple times, and I'm kind of a broken record at this point. I don't know. Any other thoughts on LVO?
It was super fun. Oh, shout out to Endless's stream. Oh, yeah. David Zelenka. His stream was fantastic. They did a great job of keeping up with the players and with the game, and being able to have both players mic'd was awesome. I thought that was so important, because I've seen other streams where sometimes it's hard to find out what's going on exactly in the game if you can't hear the players and what they're discussing. And so there's a little bit of guesswork, and it's just so much easier to follow when you can hear the players and their discussion. And I thought that was really good. And then the commentary in between that was fantastic. So he did a great job.
Yeah, that streaming setup was great. I'm going to ditto what you said about miking players. It makes such a big difference. Invader League was the first time I ever got streamed, and watching it back, it's so funny because there's so many times where streamers are saying, I think Brian, I was streamed once by you and then once by some Australian guys, and I think Flaming Penguin, I want to say. But it's so funny as the streamers, when they can't hear the players, right? They have no idea what's going on. So sometimes they're saying things that think we're talking about. Well, you streamed the game that was between Adam and I, actually.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's so funny. There's moments, where the streamers are kind of trying to figure out what's going on with the players, and then like when you're watching it back as a player, you're like, no, that's not what we were talking about. Or, no, that's not what I was saying. It's so funny, and it leads to it's like an inherently awkward thing that's not anybody's fault, right? But then so being able to hear the players mic'd, it's so easy to be like, oh, this, they're doing this. Oh, this is why that dodge token's there, because he said, right. It's so easy to understand what's going on when both players are mic'd.
So it was great stream. It was a lot of fun. I got to cure my FOMO watching it, so it was great. One last thing before I close this out here, or before we close out here, is there's a new mode released for Star Wars Legion, which has me fucking, well, I can't say that, has me ecstatic, being the new special Spec Ops. I don't know if it's called Spec Ops or if it's Special Operations. I don't know what the actual official name is or whatnot. But essentially, if I were to describe this in one sentence, it would be Kill Team but Star Wars, which is awesome for me.
I agree, Adam. Now I don't know Kill Team. I never played 40K, and I know you're super hyped about it. So if you were to explain Kill Team to a non-40K player, can you explain it to me?
The idea of this mode is that it's kind of like taking a special operations kind of like maneuver, rebel commandos going kind of like behind the lines, or ARC troopers or BX commando droids, that kind of thing, to in a small squad based engagement. So the main differences in this mode is that instead of having squads per units, you have a single mini for a unit, and that's just going to be a B1 battle droid, a rebel trooper, a Wookiee, kind of stuff like that. And it is a small 8 to 10 minis per side on a skirmish size board, and basically it's this small little squad based battle between these two squads, and they're just kind of like duking it out. So like that's pretty much all there is to it. It's a fun way to kind of like put a little bit more customization into your units, put a little bit more life into them, because like you could have this like generic squad that's kind of like this old, like, you know, there's a story behind them kind of deal, because like there's one of the big things with this release, and this, because this is essentially a beta, which means it's there, hopefully there's more things that come out with it down the line. And so like one of the things that has a lot of potential to come out down the line is this narrative campaign idea. So it's like you take the same squad, you kind of like upgrade them a little bit as you go, you play different missions with them, and you're telling a story with this kind of like little squad. And so like that's kind of like one of my favorite aspects of this, is that this mode kind of ends up giving you it gives a little bit more light to the little guys, because like there's no Jedi or anything in this mode, there's no big names in this mode, it's literally just trooper units and everything. And so I guess that's also another plus to it.
So I think that's kind of cool, because I love the whole idea of these battles, right? Because you look at these different Star Wars games and miniature games that we're familiar with, and we're familiar with Armada, and then you can zoom in a little bit and you get X-Wing, and then you can zoom in onto the planet and you get Legion, and then you can zoom in and you get Kill Team, or this Special Ops.
Yeah. And
you're zooming in on a small section of your already Legion battlefield. I just think it's fun to be able to see how they interact, and being able to sharpen your lens and zoom in a little bit and be like, okay, we're going to focus on these two squads fighting each other, and we're going to see how it goes.
Right.
And I just think that's cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's a little more relaxed. It's it's something that's easier to convince a friend to play with you. If you've got a friend who likes Star Wars and they say, well, I've seen that game, how does Legion work? It's like, oof. It's like, all right, let's block out 4 hours. You get right. It's like hard to, they're bringing in new players to do, if they're like someone who does mini gaming, or like they really want to jump in, right? You can do it. But this seems like something where you could obviously the rules still take like a decent amount to explain, but you could, find a 3x3 table. You each, have like 8 minis or something like that, and you set up. You're like, all right, here, you use these to move. Your attack goes like this. You can see the dice on this little card that I printed out. It seems, and it seems like it takes less time, which is
it is so roughly it's about roughly the same time as a skirmish game takes currently. So hour and a half.
Cool.
It's pretty decent time. But yeah, one of the other things with it being 8 minis is that you can buy a box, or I think 2 boxes for most of the squads. So like you're only buying 2 boxes, and you've got a fully essentially army to play with for this game,
right,
which is great to get people in and everything. And like there's a good chance that I'm probably going to try and convince a bunch of my friends to try this out with me, because I can build like 2 to 4 of each of these 8 squads with the stuff I own, whereas like I could only build like 2 or 3 armies with what I own. So like it's awesome. It's a great way to get new people in, everything and whatnot. Only downside I see to it is that Legion is still a good game, because like one of the big arguments for Kill Team versus 40K is that 40K is kind of rough right now. So like Kill Team is kind of like your answer to that, and it's like you're able to play it. So now it's like, oh, now I gotta choose to play Spec Ops, or I gotta choose to play Legion. It's kind of annoying, because now it's too many options.
Too many good things.
Too many good things. First world problems, So, all right. I think we've been rambling long enough. Hour and 23 minutes, yeah. So, Nathan, I gave you probably the most warning out of anyone that's been on the show so far. So I am hoping for something good. Do you have any life advice for us?
Yeah. My life advice is twofold. 1, don't swim in toilets. 2, don't pee in pools.
I think that's a great way to close it out. Yeah.